Imagine a storm hits tonight, not the kind that knocks out power for a few hours, the kind that shuts down the grid for 2 weeks. Grocery stores close by day 1. The fresh produce in your kitchen rots by day 3. Your freezer becomes a liability, not an asset. And suddenly, the only thing standing between you and real hunger is whatever happens to be sitting in your pantry right now. Most people would be shocked at what they find. Half-empty cracker boxes, flour with no way to cook it, a couple of cans they bought 2 years ago and never thought about again. But here is what nobody tells you about those cans. They might not just be fine. Under the right conditions, some of them could be sitting there, perfectly safe, long after everything else in your kitchen has turned to dust. Long after your phone is dead, your grocery app is useless, and the world has gotten genuinely uncertain. There is something almost unsettling about canned food when you really think about it. A technology invented in the early 1800s, originally designed to keep soldiers and sailors alive on long voyages, still sitting on your shelf today, doing exactly what it was designed to do. Holding back time. What you are about to discover will permanently change how you read expiration dates, how you think about food storage, and what it actually means for food to be good. Because the story of canned food is not really about food at all. It is about chemistry. It is about survival. And in a few cases, what we found is genuinely unbelievable. After reviewing USDA food safety guidance, FDA preservation data, peer-reviewed food science research, military ration records, and documented emergency preparedness archives, a picture emerged that most people never see. There are foods on grocery store shelves right now that, under the right conditions, could be safely consumed decades from now. Some of them are obvious. Others will genuinely surprise you, and a few will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about that date stamped on the lid. Here is the most important thing you will hear today, and we want to say it clearly before we begin. That date printed on almost every can is not a safety cutoff. In most cases, it is a quality marker. It is the manufacturer's best estimate of when the product is at its peak flavor, texture, and nutritional density. After that date, the food may be completely safe, just slightly less optimal. The USDA has been explicit about this distinction for decades. Best by does not mean dangerous after. It almost never does. But food companies do not put that on the label because shorter perceived shelf lives drive more purchases. So let's talk about what actually lasts and why, and what it could mean for you when the world gets a little uncertain. We are covering 21 foods. Some will be surprising. All of them are real, backed by science, and available at your local grocery store right now. Grains and starches, the foundation of survival. Number 1, white rice, canned and sealed in oxygen-free containers. White rice, sealed in oxygen-free containers, is one of the most studied and verified long-term survival foods in existence. Food scientists who specialize in long-term grain storage consistently report that properly sealed white rice maintains both its safety and caloric integrity for 25 to 30 years, sometimes longer. The key word is properly. In a Mylar bag with an oxygen absorber, stored in a cool, dark location, white rice becomes something close to permanent food storage. The chemistry is simple. Remove oxygen, eliminate moisture, and the organisms responsible for spoilage have nothing to work with. The milling process strips away the bran layer and its oils, the elements that go rancid over time, leaving behind pure starch that is dry, stable, and extraordinarily patient. The USDA confirms that low-moisture foods stored in airtight containers can have an indefinite safety window. Texture and flavor degrade slowly over decades, but nutrition and safety hold. The LDS Church's food storage program, one of the most rigorously documented long-term food storage systems in history, has extensively tested white rice at 25+ years with no safety concerns identified. Number 2, canned oats, rolled or steel-cut, hermetically sealed. Almost nobody thinks to put canned oats in a survival pantry. Almost everybody should. Rolled oats and steel-cut oats sealed in airtight containers have a shelf life that consistently reaches 20 to 30 years in optimal storage conditions. Like white rice, oats are low-moisture grains that become extraordinarily stable when properly sealed against oxygen and humidity. The USDA Food Safety Database lists properly stored whole grains as indefinitely safe beyond their printed dates when moisture content remains controlled. But oats carry something beyond chemistry. In prolonged emergencies, oatmeal is one of the most psychologically stabilizing foods you can have. It signals normalcy, it is warm, it fills you without demanding much fuel to prepare. Survival is not only about calories, it is about maintaining the mental routine of eating like a person, not an animal. That distinction matters more than most people realize until they are in it. Number 3. Canned bread. Boston brown bread, retort processed. This one surprises almost everyone. Canned bread is a real product with a serious preservation profile and a history stretching back over a century in military and maritime provisioning. Boston brown bread has been commercially canned in the United States for well over 100 years. The retort canning process bakes the bread inside the can and seals it simultaneously, creating a product with a documented shelf life of 2 to 5 years that extends further in cool storage. The texture is dense and moist, different from fresh-baked bread, but calorie-dense, satisfying, and deeply stabilizing. In extended emergency scenarios, the absence of bread is one of the first sensory losses people report affecting morale. Carbohydrate cravings intensify under stress. Canned bread is an anchor. It is also a revelation for anyone who has never heard of it, and once you know it exists, you cannot believe you never thought about it before. Proteins, what your body cannot survive. Number 4. Canned salmon. Canned salmon has a profile that should make it one of the most sought-after items in any long-term food reserve, yet most people walk past it at the grocery store as if it is invisible. The commercial canning process uses retort sterilization. The product is heated under pressure to temperatures that eliminate all viable microorganisms. The resulting sealed can is a genuinely sterile environment. USDA and FDA guidance both confirm that properly canned fish products are safe indefinitely from a microbial standpoint. Nutritionally, the protein content remains largely stable over time. Some degradation in omega-3 fatty acid quality occurs over the later years, but the core nutritional package, complete protein, calcium from the soft-cooked bones in some varieties, B12, and healthy fat holds remarkably well. Documented safe storage periods run 3 to 5 years on label, with preservation research consistently showing safe consumption windows of 5 to 10 years and beyond under proper conditions. Number 5. Canned tuna in oil or water. Canned tuna is the most purchased canned fish in the United States, and yet almost nobody truly understands how long it lasts. The label says 2 to 5 years. Studies on commercially canned tuna conducted by food science researchers have found that samples stored for a decade or more retain safe microbial profiles and acceptable nutritional content, the primary change being a slow, textural degradation. The protein does not disappear. The calories remain. The can stays sealed against all biological threats. Tuna's real value in long-term storage is also its psychological value. Eating canned tuna does not feel like eating survival food the way some items on this list do. For most American, Canadian, British, and Australian households, canned tuna is deeply familiar. Familiarity is not a trivial thing. When conditions are stressful, familiar food is genuinely stabilizing. Number 6. Canned sardines in olive oil. From a purely nutritional standpoint, canned sardines in olive oil might be the most complete single can food on this entire list. A single can provides complete protein, calcium from the soft-cooked bones, vitamin D, vitamin B12, iron, and a meaningful dose of omega-3 fatty acids. No other commonly available canned food delivers that combined nutritional profile in one small container. The oil packing method creates an anaerobic environment that inhibits aerobic bacteria, while the sterilization process eliminates anaerobic threats. USDA guidelines list sardines at 3 to 5 years on label, but preservation research suggests safety well beyond that in cool storage. The only real barrier for most Western consumers is psychological. Generations of Europeans, Japanese, and Mediterranean populations who rely on sardines as a daily food, not an emergency food, are simply better prepared. If you were genuinely hungry, the hesitation would disappear. Number 7. Canned chicken. White meat, retort, processed. Canned chicken has a quiet, almost boring enduring reputation, and that reputation is completely undeserved. It is one of the most versatile, protein-rich, and genuinely long-lasting foods on this list. USDA data supports a minimum shelf life of 3 to 5 years on label, with safety extending several years beyond that in proper storage. The retort sterilization process creates the same hermetically sealed, microbially inert environment as canned fish. What most people do not account for in a survival scenario is protein fatigue. Carbohydrate-heavy emergency diets, beans and rice, pasta, crackers, become demoralizing without adequate protein. Canned chicken breaks that cycle. It can be eaten cold, straight from the can. It becomes the protein base for soup, pasta, or improvised sandwiches. Military field ration programs have relied on canned meat proteins precisely because of this combination of versatility and morale value. Number 8. Canned corned beef. Commercially canned corned beef undergoes the same high-pressure retort sterilization that renders all contents microbially sterile. The FDA confirms that low-acid canned foods carry a label shelf life of 2 to 5 years, with the underlying science supporting extended safety in proper storage. Corned beef is uniquely calorie-dense among canned meats, sodium-rich for electrolyte support during physical exertion, and requiring zero preparation beyond opening. There is a reason corned beef has been a staple of military rations across multiple continents and multiple wars. British Armed Forces, Australian military, and emergency humanitarian aid programs have all relied on canned beef as a frontline caloric resource. It does not spoil. It does not require cooking. It delivers caloric density that almost nothing else on a grocery shelf can match per ounce. Number 9. Canned beans. Kidney, black, pinto, chickpeas, white. Canned beans deserve far more credit than they typically receive. The commercial canning process not only preserves them, but pre-cooks them, eliminating the fuel and water requirements that cooking dried beans from scratch demands. USDA guidance lists canned beans at 2 to 5 years, with retort sterilization science supporting safety well beyond that in stable storage conditions. What beans uniquely contribute is complete proteins when combined with grains. The amino acid profiles of legumes and grains complement each other to provide all 9 essential amino acids the human body cannot produce on its own. Rice and beans together form one of the most complete, affordable, and energy-dense survival food pairings in human nutritional history. Every major civilization that has survived extended food scarcity. Latin American populations, South Asian communities, African agricultural societies, has centered on some version of grain plus legume. That is not cultural accident. That is nutritional engineering refined over thousands of years. Fats, the most calorie-dense survival foods on the shelf. Number 10. Canned pure lard, commercially rendered. 100 years ago, a can of pure lard in the root cellar was completely normal. Households kept rendered animal fat not as a cooking convenience, but as a survival resource. Commercially canned pure lard, stored in cool, dark conditions, has a documented shelf life that can exceed 5 years, and in many cases stretch considerably further. The primary degradation mechanism for fats is oxidation, which produces rancidity. Vacuum sealing removes the oxygen that drives that process, dramatically extending the effective shelf life. Fat is caloric gold in survival terms. 1 gram of fat delivers 9 calories, compared to 4 for carbohydrates. Pioneers crossing the American West carried lard for exactly this reason. It was survival mathematics. The USDA notes that commercially processed fats stored in sealed containers resist spoilage far longer than their modest label dates suggest. Modern preppers and homesteaders have rediscovered this. There is something quietly powerful about a sealed can of fat that holds more energy per ounce than almost anything else in the pantry. Number 11. Canned butter, commercially processed, vacuum packed. Most people do not know commercially canned butter exists. Emergency food brands offer butter that has been processed under high heat to eliminate pathogens and sealed in vacuum-packed tins. Documented shelf life runs 2 to 5 years at room temperature, but the underlying food science points to an extended window under cool storage conditions. Like all fats, butter's main threat is oxidation and rancidity, not bacterial contamination. Remove oxygen, maintain low temperatures, and those degradation pathways slow dramatically. In a long-term food storage scenario, canned butter becomes extraordinary. It provides fat, flavor, and the ability to make almost anything palatable. One of the quieter lessons from documented disaster relief operations is that morale food matters enormously, and butter is one of the most efficient morale foods that exists. The ability to put butter on a piece of bread or a bowl of rice changes the psychological experience of eating under stress in a way that is difficult to overstate. Number 12. Canned coconut milk. Canned coconut milk sits at an unusual intersection of fat, carbohydrate, and micronutrient richness that makes it one of the most calorie-dense and versatile non-meat items in long-term storage. With approximately 45 to 50 calories per 2 tablespoons, its high-fat content delivers the same kind of concentrated caloric energy as other fats on this list. The FDA guidance for canned coconut milk mirrors other low-acid canned goods, a stated shelf life of 2 to 5 years, with underlying food science supporting extended safety in proper storage. In practical cooking terms, coconut milk transforms rice, beans, and canned vegetables into meals that do not feel like emergency rations. It adds flavor, texture, and caloric richness to anything it touches. In large parts of Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the Caribbean, coconut milk has historically served as both a daily cooking staple and a survival food during periods of scarcity. Valued specifically because its fat content could sustain populations through reduced food availability. The people who have depended on it for generations understand something that modern Western pantry planning consistently overlooks: canned vegetables, fiber, vitamins, and dietary variety. Number 13. Canned tomatoes. Crushed, whole, diced, pureed. Canned tomatoes are one of the most versatile and scientifically well-documented long-term storage foods available. Tomatoes are naturally acidic, with a pH typically between 4 and 4.6. That acidity creates an environment hostile to most pathogens. The FDA classifies tomatoes as a high-acid food, which means they require less processing intensity to achieve sterility, yet they still undergo full retort sterilization in commercial production. USDA and FDA label recommendations are 18 months to 2 years, but documented testing of canned tomato products shows quality and safety retention of 5 years and beyond in stable storage. The practical value of canned tomatoes in a long-term diet is enormous. They are the flavor foundation of hundreds of meals. They transform dried beans and pasta into something that resembles actual cuisine. Survival researchers have documented what they call sensory fatigue, a loss of appetite driven by dietary monotony, as a genuine threat in extended emergency scenarios. Canned tomatoes are one of the most effective and affordable safeguards against it. Number 14. Canned pumpkin puree. Canned pumpkin puree does not appear on most survival food lists, and that is a serious oversight. It is one of the most nutrient-dense, shelf-stable plant foods available in a can. USDA guidance lists canned vegetables at 2 to 5 years, with documented quality retention extending further in proper storage. But pumpkin's specific nutritional profile makes it stand out. It is extraordinarily rich in beta-carotene, the precursor to vitamin A, which supports immune function, vision, and skin integrity, all of which can degrade under prolonged physical stress. Vitamin A deficiency is a documented problem in long-term humanitarian crises, where dietary diversity becomes impossible. A study published by the World Health Organization has documented vitamin A deficiency as one of the leading preventable nutritional crises in disaster situations. A can of pumpkin on the shelf is direct insurance against that specific deficiency. The people who plan survival nutrition at a granular level almost always include it. Those who do not often end up with calorie-sufficient but micronutrient-deficient reserves, a problem that emerges slowly but compounds fast. Number 15. Canned corn. Canned corn might seem unremarkable, but its shelf life profile is consistently underestimated. The FDA classifies sweet corn as a low-acid vegetable, placing it in the same preservation category as canned beans and meats, meaning commercial retort canning achieves genuine sterility that holds well beyond the label date. Studies on canned vegetables in properly maintained storage conditions find safety windows extending to 7 to 10 years in multiple documented cases. Beyond shelf life, Corn is calorie-dense relative to most canned vegetables, provides B vitamins and carbohydrates, and is one of the most universally accepted foods across age groups. This last point deserves attention. In extended emergency situations involving children, food refusal becomes a serious practical problem. Familiar, accepted foods reduce that risk significantly. Canned corn is one of the most broadly acceptable foods that exists, a consideration that pure nutritional analysis misses entirely. Pantry staples that never expire. Number 16. Honey, sealed jar, or can. Honey has genuinely earned the title of eternal food. Archaeologists excavating ancient Egyptian tombs have recovered honey estimated at over 3,000 years old, and by multiple historical accounts, still edible. The science behind this is almost poetic. Honey is hygroscopic, meaning it naturally draws moisture out of its surrounding environment. Bacteria and mold need moisture to survive. Honey offers them none. Its pH is naturally acidic, typically between 3 and 4.5, further inhibiting microbial growth. Add in the natural presence of hydrogen peroxide, a byproduct of the enzyme glucose oxidase, and you have a food that is essentially its own complete preservative system. Sealed honey does not expire, period. It can crystallize over time, which many people mistake for spoilage, but gentle warming returns it to liquid form with no loss of quality. The only real threats to honey are an open container and a humid environment. Keep it sealed, keep it dry, and it will outlast almost everything else in your kitchen. And probably you. Number 17. White sugar, sealed container. White sugar, like honey, sits quietly in a sealed container and does something that almost no other food does. It simply refuses to change. Sugar is hygroscopic, and its extremely low water activity prevents all microbial growth. There are no bacteria or molds that can colonize pure crystalline sucrose in a sealed, dry environment. Multiple food science sources document the shelf life of sealed white sugar as indefinitely safe, with quality preservation tied only to avoiding moisture and contamination. In practical terms, sugar is a caloric powerhouse. 4 calories per gram, entirely from carbohydrates, immediately available for energy metabolism. But it is also a trade good, a fermentation substrate for preserving fruits, and most critically, a flavor modifier that keeps a repetitive diet psychologically tolerable. In documented accounts of historical famines and wartime rationing programs, sugar was consistently one of the first commodities people sought beyond basic caloric needs. It signals normalcy. It is the thing that makes other food feel like food. Number 18. Salt, iodized or pure, sealed. The next time someone tells you salt is just a seasoning, remind them that for most of recorded human history, salt was currency. It was military strategy. It was the literal reason trade routes existed. Pure sodium chloride cannot spoil. It has no biological processes that degrade it. Sealed salt has an indefinite shelf life under any reasonable storage condition. The USDA classifies it as a food with no meaningful expiration. FEMA emergency preparedness guidance specifically recommends salt as a long-term storage essential. In a survival context, salt does far more than season food. It draws moisture out of meat and vegetables to preserve them through curing and fermentation. It helps regulate electrolyte balance in the body, which becomes critical during physical exertion or illness. It is simultaneously a processing tool, a preservation agent, and a physiological requirement, all in one cheap, ubiquitous package. Most people keep a single cardboard container and never think about it again. You probably want significantly more than that. Number 19. Pure cocoa powder, sealed tin. Pure cocoa powder in a sealed tin is one of the few luxury items that genuinely belongs in a long-term food reserve. And not just for morale. Cocoa powder has a documented shelf life of 3 to 5 years on label, but when stored sealed in a cool, dry location, it maintains its flavor and nutritional profile for many years beyond that. Its low moisture content and acidic pH create conditions inhospitable to microbial growth. Beyond shelf life, cocoa powder is one of the most nutritionally dense pantry items by weight. It is rich in iron, magnesium, zinc, and manganese, minerals that are notoriously difficult to maintain in long-term shelf-stable diets. It contains antioxidants with documented cardiovascular benefits, and it provides one of the most powerful morale effects of any food known. In historical accounts of extended sieges, polar expeditions, and wartime rationing programs, chocolate and cocoa appear repeatedly as items that maintain soldier and civilian morale beyond what their caloric contribution alone would explain. That is not coincidence. It is neurochemistry. A sealed tin of cocoa powder in your storage is not an indulgence. It is a 10-year morale management tool. Number 20. Canned evaporated milk. Canned evaporated milk belongs in a category of its own on this list. The canning process reduces the water content of milk by roughly 60% before sealing, creating a product that is both calorie-dense and shelf-stable. USDA guidance lists evaporated milk at 1 year on label, but the preservation literature and documented experience of long-term storage practitioners consistently show safety well beyond that window in sealed cans stored in cool, dark conditions. What evaporated milk provides that no other single item on this list does is a nearly complete nutritional package. Protein, fat, carbohydrates, calcium, phosphorus, vitamin A, and vitamin D, all in one can. For infants, young children, elderly individuals, and anyone with elevated nutritional needs, evaporated milk can function as a near-complete dietary supplement when other food sources are compromised. During the major humanitarian crises of the 20th century, including post-World War II relief operations and multiple documented famine responses, evaporated milk was consistently distributed as one of the highest priority nutritional interventions available. It is not dramatic. It does not sound exciting, but as a single can nutritional delivery system, it is almost unmatched on any grocery shelf. Number 21. Canned peas. Split, dried, long-term sealed storage. Dried split peas sealed in airtight containers close this list as one of the longest-lasting, most complete plant proteins available in any format. Unlike fresh or canned peas, dried split peas, stored in oxygen-free conditions, have a documented shelf life of 25 or more years. They provide complete protein when paired with grains, substantial dietary fiber, iron, and potassium, and they require nothing more than water and heat to prepare. They are, in their own quiet way, one of the most durable and nutritionally complete survival foods that has ever existed. Here is the quiet truth underneath everything you have just heard. The expiration dates printed on the vast majority of canned goods are not safety thresholds. They are quality estimates. They represent the manufacturer's best prediction, under average storage conditions, of when the product is at its optimal flavor and texture. They are not, with very narrow exceptions, the point at which a food becomes dangerous. The USDA has documented this distinction for decades. The difference between best by, use by, and expires on is meaningful, and most consumers have never been told what it actually means. Best by indicates peak quality, not a safety deadline. Use by is more commonly applied to fresh products and is a stronger indicator. But even then, properly sealed canned goods operate under entirely different principles than fresh food. What actually determines whether a canned food is safe is simple: the integrity of the seal, the absence of visible damage or compromise, and the storage conditions. A can that has never been opened, has never been exposed to extreme temperature cycling, shows no rust, swelling, or physical damage, and has been stored in a cool, dry location is doing exactly what it was designed to do, holding back time. The single most important rule you can take from everything in this video: temperature matters more than the date on the can. Every 10-degree drop in storage temperature roughly doubles the effective shelf life of most shelf-stable foods. A basement that maintains 60 degrees Fahrenheit year-round is more valuable to your food storage than any specialty product or expensive prepping gear. Food companies do not put this information on the label. Shorter perceived shelf lives drive more frequent purchases. That is the system. Now you know how it actually works. What is in your pantry right now might be better prepared than you are. Some of those cans you bought 2 years ago and forgot about could still be perfectly safe. And some of the most popular foods in your kitchen, the ones with no can, no seal, no vacuum, may expire faster than a piece of fresh fruit. That list is coming in a future video, and it will be more surprising than anything you heard today. If you learned something from this, something you are going to actually use, hit the like button. It tells us this kind of deep, research-backed content is what you want more of. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of what the food industry is not telling you. And drop a comment below. Which of these 21 surprised you the most? We read every single one. The world is uncertain. Your pantry does not have to be.